Transmigrated into a 180-pound stepping stone female supporting character in a novel, I fell into a self-justification trap right from the start. There were originally 1,000 in my wallet, but now only 600 is left. The missing 400 must have been taken by you. The other party spoke with conviction, their face full of ill intentions. The female lead ran to my side, seemingly full of concern. But as soon as she opened her mouth, she told me to return the non-existent 400 yuan to the other person. The male lead I had a crush on stood to the side, frowning and saying nothing. His gaze toward me was filled with blame. I sneered coldly, shaking off the female lead's hand amidst everyone's accusations and mocking gazes, then apologized to the person in front of me. "Oh, I'm sorry, but this wallet might not be yours." "You, what do you mean?" Seeing me snatch the wallet from his hand, the boy who had been accusing me of stealing money froze in place. The onlookers clearly didn't expect me to snatch the found wallet back, and they were all stunned for a moment. "Ai Qing, what do you mean by this? Stealing money is one thing, but now you're openly robbing, right?" Shenmu snapped back to reality and immediately shouted at me in a fit of anger and embarrassment, yet I remained calm and collected. Right in front of him, I slowly tucked the wallet back into my school uniform pocket. The panic and helplessness in my eyes vanished almost instantly, replaced by a look as if I were watching a clown perform, and I spoke up. "You said there was 1,000 in this wallet, but when I picked it up, there were only 600 yuan inside. There's no ID in it, and the amount of money doesn't match what you claimed. Clearly, this isn't your wallet." I shrugged and smiled at him, but in truth, there was no trace of warmth in my eyes, only a cold, mocking amusement. Hearing me say this, Shenmu clearly grew anxious and shouted at me, "This is my wallet. How can you prove it?" I raised an eyebrow, took out the wallet, held it up in my hand, and spoke in an unhurried tone. Shenmu was caught off guard by my sudden counter-question at this moment. He pursed his lips and glared at me fiercely, then, as if trying to prove something, gritted his teeth and said to me, "Besides money, there's also a 5 yuan discount coupon for the snack shop across from the school in my wallet." "Oh," I nodded, opened the wallet pretending to check, but suddenly thought of something and closed it again. I raised my voice and said, "Who knows if you saw this coupon when you were rummaging through the wallet just now? This can't be considered evidence." "Anything else?" Under the stunned gazes of everyone, I once again waved my wallet at him. At this point, Shenmu was completely dumbfounded. He opened his mouth, but for a long while, he couldn't utter a word. After all, with just one sentence, I dismantled the self-justification trap he had set for the original host, and with a few more words, I led him by the nose. "Now, if he wants the wallet back, he must prove that it belongs to him, otherwise, I absolutely won't hand it over. Hurry up, can you prove this wallet is yours or not? Class is about to start, don't waste everyone's time." "Okay," I deliberately urged him, igniting his current anxiety. "Exactly, can you even prove this wallet is yours? You must have a purchase record when you bought the wallet, just show it, don't waste any more time." Everyone's eyes were now fixed on Shenmu, the barrage of doubts and urgings nearly shattering his mental defenses. Producing the purchase record might be a good way to prove his innocence, but the problem was, he hadn't bought this wallet. If he could actually produce it, that would be nothing short of a miracle. Now he has only two paths before him: either admit that he falsely accused me, or grit his teeth and give up on this wallet. Of course, no matter which path he chooses, the final outcome will ultimately mean the same thing. Time passed minute by minute. Shenmu's expression grew increasingly unpleasant. I raised an eyebrow, just about to press my advantage. Lin Yu, who had remained silent until now, suddenly stepped forward. "I can prove this wallet belongs to Shenmu. Qingqing, I know you're upset, but in front of so many classmates, could you please stop giving him a hard time?" Lin Yu tightly grabbed my arm, and as soon as she spoke, it was as if a savior had descended, placing the blame squarely on my head. Those beautiful eyes were filled with heartache and concern for Shenmu, and brimming with disapproval and accusation toward me. This disgusting look and tactic were exactly the same as before. Glancing at her sideways, a sudden flash of a plotline appeared in my mind. In the original story, the protagonist fell into the trap of self-justification. However, in order to showcase her own reasonableness and kindness in front of everyone, Lin Yu, the protagonist's best friend, not only failed to help clear the protagonist's name when she was first framed, but instead, without a second thought, demanded that the protagonist hand over the 400 yuan. seeing the protagonist bite her lip in silence. She even, considerately, said, "Ching Ching, I know your family is struggling, but even so, you shouldn't take someone else's money. If you need money, you can tell me, I'll give it to you." She publicly wounded the original host's self-esteem in front of everyone, and then, without permission, took the blame for the original host, paying Shenmue 400 yuan out of her own pocket. After this incident, the original host was branded a thief and became the target of ridicule and bullying from many. Meanwhile, the female lead, praised for her gentleness and kindness following the incident, became the goddess in everyone's eyes and the eternal white moonlight in the male lead's heart. To this, I can only say, be like green tea white lotus, don't even think about getting close. Then when he just accused me in front of so many people of stealing his money, wasn't I embarrassed too? I subtly pulled my arm out of her grasp and took 2 steps back, creating some distance between us. Was it embarrassing for me to reasonably ask him to provide evidence? Then when he accused me in front of so many classmates of stealing his money, wasn't I even more embarrassed? Why didn't you jump out to speak up for me then? As a fellow woman, you didn't choose to stand up when a woman was being wronged. Instead, you only jumped out to accuse me, a woman, when you saw a man being treated unfairly. I don't understand. Are you engaging in internalized misogyny, trying to guilt-trip me? Let's see if she can handle this move, a trap of self-justification that works both ways. Sure enough, Lin Yu, who had been standing on the moral high ground waiting to embarrass me, now turned pale. She never expected that I wouldn't fall for her act at all, and I even straightforwardly exposed her true colors. The crowd of onlookers grew larger, and many scrutinizing gazes now fell upon her. As if waiting for her to provide a reasonable explanation, Lin Yu's eyes instantly reddened, and she stood there hesitating, unsure of what to do. I think if she had any brains, she would realize that it wasn't just an explanation, but a carefully laid trap I prepared for her to prove herself. Once she opens her mouth, no matter what she says, she will never be able to shake off the label of engaging in female competition. Enough, a cold voice cut through the tense atmosphere. Xiao Zian, who had been standing by and watching the scene unfold with indifference, seemed unable to bear seeing the girl he admired being wronged. Frowning, he stepped in front of her. Lin Yu was just upset about seeing a classmate being wronged, so she spoke too hastily and said the wrong thing. She is kind-hearted, unlike you, who is narrow-minded and only knows how to make unreasonable trouble, deliberately making things difficult for others. The male lead truly lives up to his title. With just a few words, he can make one feel suffocated. Shenmue immediately grasped the deeper meaning in the male lead's words and quickly launched an attack on me. That's right, AI Qing, don't think we don't all know. You're just jealous that Xiaoshen likes Ye and publicly rejected your confession, which is why you deliberately slandered her just now. You are utterly shameless. As Shenmue finished speaking, Lin Yu seized the moment and let her tears fall. She put on a look of being wronged, walked up to me, and said with a pained expression, "Ching Ching, I know you resent me because of what happened before, but feelings are uncontrollable. You can't just take out your frustrations on me in front of others just because you feel wronged." Got it. My gaze turned icy for a moment. No matter when, the main characters can always unite and instantly turn the situation around. But that's all they're capable of, to be honest. Only animals in heat can't control their emotions. In some ways, you might not even be as good as an animal. I smiled gently at the pitiful Lin Yu, then ignored her ever-changing expression, which resembled a palette, and looked at the 2 people behind her. First, Xiao Zi, I admit I used to have feelings for you, so looking back now, I feel quite sorry for my past taste. How on earth did my eyes go so blind? My face was filled with regret as I shouted in frustration to all the girls in the crowd. Everyone has heard it now. To those girls who still have lingering feelings for this thief, I advise you to think carefully. After all, in the future, words like narrow-minded, unreasonable, deliberately difficult, or even worse might just fall on you, just like they did a moment ago. The previously restless onlookers were now exceptionally quiet. I even noticed a few girls who had secretly admired Xiao Zai now rolling their eyes at him and saying, "Scumbag, what a disgrace, damn, I must have been blind before." Saying such things to a girl is truly disgusting. Xiao Zai's originally indifferent face instantly cracked. I could even see the corner of his mouth twitching, his back teeth nearly grinding to dust. Yet, even so, he didn't dare to retort back at me. After all, if he opened his mouth, His image as the perfect male god in everyone's eyes would be completely shattered. Seeing his frustrated expression of wanting to take me down but unable to do so, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. I then turned to look at Shenmue, who was gritting his teeth beside me. When he noticed my gaze, a flicker of fear flashed across his expression. After all, he had just witnessed firsthand how I managed to make Xiao Zai, who was seen as a god in everyone's eyes, suffer a setback. You just said I framed Lin Yu for engaging in female competition out of jealousy because Xiao Zai likes her, but when you framed me for stealing your money, what was your reason? I smiled at him, curling my lips. You must have some reason for framing me, right? Or is it because you like me and want to get my attention by framing me? Saying this, I deliberately took 2 steps back and gave him a look of disgust. Shenmue was indeed provoked by my deliberate attempt to disgust him. As if he had lost all reason, he immediately responded with contempt. Of course not, I'm just upset because Ayue was wronged by you, and I can't stand it. The previously noisy atmosphere seemed to quiet down for a few seconds. Unlike Shenmue's righteous indignation, Lin Yu's face was now as pale as could be. Shenmue clearly hadn't realized what he had just said. I nodded in sudden understanding and then continued, so, this wallet only had 600 from the start. And you framed me just to stand up for Lin Yu. No wonder Lin Yu immediately accused me of stealing without a second thought and defended you so fiercely. Turns out you two are in cahoots, I exclaimed, finally seeing the light. The onlookers' faces immediately showed understanding, and their expressions as they looked at Shenmue and Lin Yu were all filled with disdain, disgust, contempt, and speechlessness. Wrapped in these gazes, Lin Yu was now almost completely humiliated. Wishing she could dig a hole and bury herself, she probably never imagined that not only would she end up with nothing, but my few words would also tear off her considerate disguise, replacing it with the label of a competitive woman. She gritted her teeth, her eyes filled with resentment as she looked at me, but settling scores with me was not her top priority at the moment. I don't know what you're talking about. Playing dumb at this moment was the only possible way to avoid all of this. She steeled herself and continued, it was my fault for not clarifying the situation and wrongly accusing you of stealing money without understanding the facts. I apologize, it was my mistake, but I truly didn't know that Shenmue was framing you. If I had known, I would have stopped him immediately. Yeah, what are you saying? Shenmue was stunned, even if he was slow to react. He now realized that Lin Yu was shifting all the blame onto him. His face was filled with disbelief. And he was about to say something, but how could Lin Yu give him another chance? Shenmue, enough, stop snapping like a rabid dog, it's really annoying. Lin Yu spoke with righteous indignation, ignoring Shenmue's unpleasant expression at the moment, as if she had the word justice written all over her face. Seeing that the expected scene of a dog-eat-dog fight didn't play out, a faint look of disappointment immediately appeared on my face. I was just about to say something more, but the class bell happened to ring at that moment. What a coincidence. Seeing the relieved expression on Lin Yu's face, I rolled my eyes. The classmates who had been watching the show reluctantly turned and headed back to their classrooms. I, too, lost interest and tossed the wallet in my hand into the arms of Shenmue, whose face was contorted with emotion. As I walked away, I shouted, hold on to your wallet, you mad dog. In just one afternoon, the incident spread like wildfire on the school forum. Someone even uploaded a video taken on the playground at the time, and the likes quickly surpassed 1,000. Watching it live didn't seem like much, but now it's clear that Lin Yu is just a green tea girl stirring up competition among women. I remember Lin Yu and Ai Qing were originally friends. If my friend completely ignored my explanation when I was being falsely accused and instead helped others blame me, I'd go crazy on the spot. No, how could Xiao Zian be such a person? Is it really okay to talk about girls like that? The criticism of the three of them on the forum was practically endless, and lately, the looks I've been getting are enough to make me feel like I'm being devoured alive. I couldn't care less about it. After all, from the very moment I entered this body, I never intended to get along with them. I came here with a mission. I stood in front of the full-length mirror at home, looking at the girl in the reflection, weighing 180 pounds, with a body full of fat, a face piled with flesh and a few newly sprouted pimples. Thick bangs covering half of her face under a pair of black-framed glasses that completely obscured her originally rather large eyes. It was simply, I couldn't think of a suitable adjective for a moment. So I walked over to the wardrobe nearby, but as I looked at the full closet of colorful, oddly shaped clothes, I fell silent. No wonder the original owner had been mocked by her classmates before, because these clothes completely and utterly expose the female lead's figure flaws. Looking at those pieces with extremely high saturation, crop tops, high collars, puffed sleeves, and sleeveless spaghetti straps, I couldn't help but wish I could burn them all in one go. These clothes completely magnify the flaws of the original owner's figure, amplifying her already plump body countless times over. Take this bubble-sleeved maxi dress, for example. It's beautiful, but when I put it on, I look like a white potato wearing armor, uniquely ugly. Then there's that high-neck sleeveless blouse. When I wear it, the collar sits right on my double chin, not only making me look exactly like Mr. Lu Huan, but also leaving me nearly suffocated, as I accidentally bent over. A rip sound later, I was suddenly gifted with a backless outfit, and without exception, all these clothes were chosen by Lin Yu, as the cannon fodder female supporting character in this book, used in every aspect to set off the female lead. The original character was already deeply insecure due to her family background and body shape. After secretly falling in love with the male lead, Xiao Zai, she cautiously confided this secret and her youthful feelings to her best friend, the female lead. Lin Yu promised to keep her secret, but at the same time, she offered advice to help the original character strive to pursue love. Lin Yu deliberately claimed that the original character dressed too plainly, picking out clothes that were completely unsuitable and would surely invite ridicule if worn. In reality, she did this to stand by the original character's side, using her to highlight her own beauty and, in the process, catch Xiao Zai's attention. Seeing the timing was ripe, they began to encourage the original host to confess, applying ridiculous heavy makeup on the female lead and dressing her in a disastrously tight dress, constantly urging her to publicly confess to Xiao Zai, causing quite a spectacle. I gathered all those oddly shaped clothes from the wardrobe, leaving only a few commonly worn t-shirts and pants, along with a couple of skirts that could be altered to fit. The rest were all packed into bags and tossed under the bed. That gave me an idea. Rather than relying on clothes to modify one's figure, this does not solve the problem at its root. The most important thing now is to shed this excess weight, both for a comeback and for the health of this body. This is a long-term and willpower-demanding decision. To better stick with it, I have reasonably formulated a 3-month weight loss plan based on online resources. Not only that, but I also need to pick up the studies that have been neglected. The original host's foundation wasn't poor. Otherwise, as a student from a county town, she wouldn't have been able to get into a key high school in the city. It was just because she had the misfortune of meeting the wrong person. Lin Yu, in order to highlight herself in every way by using the original host as a foil, kept dragging the original host into skipping classes. On the surface, neither of them studied, but in reality, Lin Yu secretly took extra lessons behind the original host's back. This kind of betrayal of a friend is utterly shameless. I started waking up an hour earlier every day, arriving at school ahead of time. Without harming my knees, I would walk briskly around the school track while wearing headphones to listen to English audio. Control your diet every day. Eliminate all beverages, snacks, and sweets. Cut your original meal portions in half, and pay more attention to a reasonable nutritional balance. After persisting like this for over half a month, I lost 15 pounds. I could clearly feel that my waistline had shrunk significantly. Seeing results made it easier to motivate myself to keep going. I combed my heavy bangs back and used the leftover food expenses to buy a pair of lightweight glasses. My entire appearance changed from the usual heavy, greasy look to a much fresher one. It seemed Lin Yu had noticed the change in me, so she simply stopped pretending. During the break, as I was heading to the restroom, I saw Lin Yu lean over and whisper something into the ear of a girl beside her. Shortly after, that girl blocked my way and spoke to me with clear hostility. "Ai Qing, you never bothered to dress up before, always looking so sloppy. Now you've changed your hairstyle and glasses. Is it because Xiaoshan rejected you, and you're trying to target other guys instead?" She crossed her arms and spoke to me with a sarcastic tone. Anyone who didn't know better might have thought a toilet had come to life, spewing foul air at anyone it encountered. I glanced at Lin Yu, who was watching the show from her seat. At this moment, it wasn't just her. Many pairs of eyes were now focused on me. My expression instantly turned icy cold. In my life, I despise nothing more than the tactic of spreading malicious rumors. It's disgusting, low-level, yet devastatingly effective. But just as well, I don't even take it seriously. I look at the girl in front of me, scanning her up and down under her smug gaze, then say with a face full of confusion, "I always thought you were a very well-mannered girl. What's wrong? Are you in a bad mood today? What is it?" The girl is stunned, seemingly not expecting me to offer no explanation in response to her words, and even looking at her with an expression that seems to say, "I don't even know where to begin." No wonder, they said you were this kind of person before. I didn't believe it at first, but now it seems it's actually true. When I mentioned them, I deliberately turned to glance at Lin Yu, then shook my head as if in regret, as she snapped back to reality and hurried toward Lin Yu. I turned and walked out of the classroom. Sometimes, there's no need to prove yourself when it comes to setting traps. I'm an expert. A month later, I successfully lost 20 pounds. The speed was so fast that I found it somewhat unbelievable. Looking at the weight of 160 on the scale, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. There seemed to be a sense of joy in my heart that didn't belong to me. By the second month, I started replacing my brisk walks with jogging, but this body clearly hadn't adapted to the sudden increase in exercise intensity. Before I could even finish the second lap, I was already panting heavily. The day after my jog, my legs felt as heavy as lead, and the pain was so intense that I nearly rolled out of bed when I tried to get up. But this was only the beginning. If I couldn't even make it through the start, the road ahead would only get harder. I began to plan more rigorously, gradually increasing my running time each day, and incorporating stretching before and after to prevent muscle stiffness and calf cramps. The second month of the weight loss plan seemed even more difficult than I had initially imagined, but fortunately, I persevered. Looking at my noticeably slimmer figure in the mirror and my gradually refined face, a sense of accomplishment once again welled up inside me. After changing my clothes, I put on my backpack and headed to school. After putting my backpack in the classroom, I headed to the playground as usual to get ready for a jog, but today, whether it was just bad luck or not, I ended up running into two unpleasant people early in the morning. "Oh my, I thought I was seeing things. Ching ching, it really is you." I was just finishing my stretches and about to start running when I suddenly heard a voice that sounded like a rooster crowing from not far away. The early morning playground still had lingering mist, through which one could only vaguely make out figures. If you didn't know better, you might think it was some rooster spirit that had come from nowhere, scaring me so much I almost called the police. Lin Yu, arm in arm with Xiao Zai, walked up to me, her face brimming with what could only be described as a hypocritical smile. It gave me the feeling that she had been waiting here for me for a long time, finally catching me with a sense of excitement. "Ching ching, what a coincidence. Are you here for morning exercise too? Are you blind?" This sentence is quite interesting. I rolled my eyes and retorted directly. For two people who have long since torn off their masks, there's no need for me to pretend anything with them anymore. Seemingly not expecting me to be so different from usual, now not hiding my emotions at all, Lin Yu pouted, her eyes almost instantly turning red. "Ching ching, we were friends after all. You don't need to harbor such malice toward me." As she spoke, Lin Yu grabbed Xiao Ziyan's sleeve beside her, looking entirely like a wronged, delicate little bird. Hearing this, Xiao Ziyan also frowned, reaching out to shield Lin Yu behind him. "Qing, do you have to be so harsh with your words?" Xiao Ziyan's eyes could hardly conceal his disgust for me. I furrowed my brows, my face wearing an expression as if I had stepped in something unpleasant. However, Lin Yu clearly misinterpreted my frown, thinking I was hurt by the words of someone I loved, and she became even more aggrieved, saying, "Ching ching, I didn't mean anything else. Ziyan and I used to exercise on the track every morning, but we never ran into you before. I know I've done things in the past that were wrong and hurt you, but Ziyan and I truly care for each other. I didn't dare tell you before because I was afraid it would upset you, but now that we're together, I hope you can let go of the past and at least stop wasting your energy on things that won't change." As she spoke, Lin Yu leaned her head against Xiao Ziyan's shoulder, as if to showcase their affection, clearly trying to flaunt their relationship in my face. Xiao Ziyan nodded in agreement, tightening his grip on Lin Yu's hand. He glanced at me from head to toe, his expression turning somewhat indescribable. "Classmate Ai Qing, you really don't need to keep doing things to deliberately attract attention. I've always only liked Lin Yu, so please don't continue to target her in the future. Otherwise, I definitely won't just stand by and do nothing." Anyone can see the changes I've made over the past 2 months, but these two narcissists actually think I changed because of them. How ridiculous. They're really like narcissists praising narcissists, so full of themselves. Shit in the cesspool turning into a spirit. It's nothing good. I've been doing morning exercises on this playground for 2 months, almost every day without fail, yet I've never seen these two things before. Didn't they say they train here often? Alright. I'd like to see what they practice here every day. You two look pretty idle. How about running a few laps with me? I took a deep breath and raised an eyebrow at the two of them. There was no need to think about it. With Lin Yu's personality, in order to use me as a stepping stone to elevate herself, she would definitely agree. Alright, Zian and I were just about to do our morning workout anyway, so let's go together. Lin Yu's eyes gleamed with excitement, as if she was determined to see me embarrass myself, convinced that I was just stubbornly holding on, completely unaware of what they were about to face. At first, Lin Yu and Xiao Zai ran hand in hand, side by side, leading the way. I maintained a steady pace behind them, focusing on my breathing to keep it from becoming erratic. Meanwhile, Lin Yu and Xiao Zai chatted and laughed, walking shoulder to shoulder, painting a picture-perfect scene of campus life. For the first 2 laps, Lin Yu managed to hold on, but by the 3rd and 4th laps, her breathing had become completely erratic. She was gasping for air, yet seeing me still unfazed, her expression turned grim as she gritted her teeth and pushed on. By the 5th lap, Lin Yu's legs had already gone weak, and she nearly collapsed to the ground. Xiao Zi was also almost at her limit. Meanwhile, I effortlessly overtook them, running ahead before turning around to jog in place, my expression full of mockery. Seriously, weren't some people just bragging about how they exercise every morning? Only a few laps and you're already out of breath. Are you really that weak, you lightweight? I looked at Xiao Zi, who was bent over and sweating profusely beside me, deliberately emphasizing the last 2 words with great force, and Xiao Zi, as expected, was provoked by these 2 words, his body stiffening involuntarily as he shot me a resentful look. Little trash, how dare you boast about yourself like this? Someone like you probably can't even. As I spoke, I glanced him up and down, then let my gaze linger on a certain part of his body, letting out an extremely insulting laugh. Xiao Zai felt insulted, never expecting that I would have the audacity to say such things, and for a moment, he was left stunned. By the time he snapped out of it and wanted to confront me, I had already run off and disappeared. Only an idiot would waste more words on those 2 idiots. Having suffered repeated setbacks at my hands, Lin Yu seemed to grow a bit more cautious, and lately, she has been keeping a low profile, but I have a rough idea why Lin Yu suddenly became well-behaved, because midterm exams are coming up soon. In her eyes, no matter how much I change myself, whether by losing weight or becoming more disciplined, there is one thing I can't surpass her in within a short time, and that is academic performance. As long as my grades remain as dismal as ever, she can always use this as a weapon to hurt me, trampling me underfoot time and time again. I naturally cannot give her that opportunity again. I still exercise every morning, but somehow, I often run into Xiao Zai, who is also jogging on the track in the dim light of dawn. Occasionally, he follows behind me, keeping a similar distance, and sometimes deliberately overtakes me, turning back to give me a provocative look. I just found it utterly baffling, so I put on my headphones and continued listening to English, never bothering with him again. Although I didn't care about anything, this scene took on a different flavor in Lin Yu's eyes. As the midterm exams drew closer, I became increasingly busy. Fortunately, thanks to my habit of planning ahead, I managed to stay organized amidst the chaos. 2 days before the exam, I returned to the classroom after my morning workout as usual, but as soon as I stepped inside, I suddenly noticed some unusual glances that were different from before. Although there had been some before, over the past 2 months, as I changed, everyone had become much more peaceful toward me, but today, that strange look came over them again, leaving me surrounded by this strangeness, feeling completely at a loss. Baffled, I sat down on the bench, but as soon as I opened my book, I heard Shen Mu, who had recently had a conflict with me, shout loudly in my direction, "Ai Qing, so your family raises cows. Are the little money your parents earn from raising cows enough to feed you? Do they know that the tuition they worked so hard to save up for by selling cows only got you the lowest scores?" Shen Mu's voice exploded like a bomb in the classroom, and many people began pointing at me, their words filled with uncontrollable mockery. "Lin Yu, how do you have the nerve to use your parents' hard-earned money to date in school? Don't you feel ashamed? It seems you not only have poor character but are also a leech who only knows how to suck the blood of your parents. An ungrateful wretch." Shenmue stood before me, holding his head high as if trying to stand on the moral high ground to make me feel guilty and embarrassed. Where did you hear about these things? I furrowed my brows, momentarily feeling a bit dazed. Shenmue sneered, holding his phone up in front of me, and said sarcastically, someone couldn't stand your actions and took justice into their own hands by posting everything about you on the forum. What do you have to say for yourself now? This time, the evidence is solid. I'd like to see how you'll try to sweet-talk your way out of it like you did last time. Shenmue was gloating with satisfaction. I could almost imagine how long he had waited for this chance to get his revenge. Looking at the forum post on his phone from a distance, I quickly took out my own phone, logged into the forum, and immediately spotted the anonymous post that had been deliberately pushed to the top. The post detailed the exact location of my hometown, a rather remote village, and emphasized my less-than-wealthy family background, my abysmal academic performance, and my past history of relentlessly pursuing Shaozai. My parents supported my education by raising cattle and tending to the family orchard, barely scraping together the tuition by selling a few cows. Even so, I shamelessly spent my parents' money on early relationships and extravagance at school, completely disregarding their hard work. It's no wonder they viewed me this way. As the post painted me as an ungrateful, self-indulgent leech, entirely dependent on my parents, in an instant, a person's name flashed through my mind. I glanced toward Lin Yu in the front row and saw her resting her chin on her hand, looking completely unperturbed. The original host had always felt inferior about her parents' work, and she had only confided in Lin Yu about these matters. No one else in the entire school knew about her family situation. A stab in the back. And right before the exam, this method is truly disgusting. Are you finished? My gaze was icy as I slammed the book in my hand onto the table. I am not the original AI Qing. Such disgusting tactics won't have any effect on me. I looked at Shenmue with a terrifying expression he had never seen before, startling him so much that he froze and swallowed hard. Can you not bring such bad luck to me first thing in the morning? Can some people have a bit of decency and not rush to act shamelessly in front of me all day long? Do you know what you look like standing in front of me, like an ancient cesspit that's come to life, reeking of filth before you even open your mouth? Even a dog would vomit in front of you before leaving. I think you're just that disgusting, with no self-awareness at all. You don't even realize how repulsive you are. You'd look in the mirror and make yourself sick. A series of outbursts left the classmates in the classroom stunned. Shenmue stared wide-eyed, his lips twitching, and before long, he was flushed with anger, pointing at me for a long time without uttering a single word. AI Qing, don't go too far. How could you say that about Shenmue? Lin Yu immediately jumped out to criticize me, and hearing those words made me want to vomit. I rolled my eyes and chuckled at her. What's the matter? I was just talking to myself. Since most of my classmates are here, why not help me bear witness? The post on the forum involved spreading my personal privacy and caused harm to me. I don't know who posted it online or what kind of mindset they had. In short, I will report it to the police and have them help me uncover the person behind the post. They must pay the price for what they have done. My gaze fell on Lin Yu, and I saw that her face, which had been smug just moments before, instantly turned pale. That post was deleted that very afternoon, but Lin Yu seemed to think too simply. She believed that by deleting the post, she could pretend nothing had happened, completely unaware that I had already taken screenshots as evidence. She, Lin Yu, was simply digging her own grave. On the day the midterm results were released, I was in the classroom working on practice problems. Everyone eagerly rushed out of the classroom, eager to check their grades, but I seemed completely indifferent to the results. After all, the questions this time weren't too difficult, and I was confident I could make it into the top 10 of the entire grade. But in the eyes of others, this attitude looked like giving up entirely. Ching, aren't you going to check your grades? Lin Yu stood up and walked over to me, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Her complexion doesn't look too good. She probably hasn't had a good night's sleep in the past few days. After all, the incident a few days ago where I publicly threatened to call the police is still weighing on her mind. How could she possibly feel at ease? If you want to watch, go ahead and watch. There's no need to seek validation from me. Anyone who doesn't know better might think you have a crush on me. I really can't stand her habit of flaunting every little thing in front of me, so I retorted without holding back. I know exactly how to make her sick. Sure enough, Lin Yu's face looked as if she had swallowed a fly. She snorted coldly and walked out of the classroom, clearly heading to check the results. but to be honest, even though I said I didn't care, deep down I was looking forward to this moment, propping my chin in my hand. I calculated the time. After about 5 minutes, Lin Yu, who had rushed out eagerly just moments ago, now returned with a face full of rage. She charged up to me, almost breaking down as she demanded, "Aiching, how could you possibly get into the top 10 of the whole grade? Even if you dislike me so much, you can't cheat. Don't you know how shameful this behavior is?" Her facial features seemed to twist in disbelief. She couldn't accept that I, who had always been beneath her feet, had suddenly surpassed her. She absolutely would not allow it. "I'm going to report you to the teacher. It's not too late to admit it now," she said through gritted teeth. I propped my chin on my hand and looked at her as if she were a clown, letting out a sudden laugh before saying to her, word by word, "Go ahead." The timid and flustered expression I had anticipated did not appear, and Lin Yu's face instantly turned pale. "You just wait." With that, she ran out of the classroom without hesitation and headed to the teacher's office. When I was called to the office, Lin Yu was already standing there. Seeing me arrive, she lifted her head. Clearly looking forward to the show. "Aiching, do you have anything to say about this exam result?" The homeroom teacher also seemed to question my unusual performance, with a tone that carried a hint of interrogation. After all, my last exam score was only 380, but this time it was a full 300 points higher than before. No matter how you think about it, it just doesn't seem possible. What does the teacher have to say about my grade? Without offering an explanation, I redirected the question. Explanations are often meant for those who believe in you. For those who doubt you no matter what you say, turning the question back on them is the best approach. "Ai Ching, I hope you can be an honest student, rather than compromising your morals and principles for the sake of a single exam result. You don't have to have excellent grades, but you must be an honest person. Cheating yourself once or twice like this won't help you at all. When the day of the college entrance exam truly arrives, everything will be exposed." The homeroom teacher seemed to speak to me with heartfelt sincerity, but her words were filled with deep distrust. In response, I continued to ask, "So, in the teacher's opinion, what is the highest score I can achieve? Or in the teacher's eyes, am I so untrustworthy that I won't take the initiative to study, won't accumulate knowledge over time, and won't be able to make a comeback?" The homeroom teacher was at a loss for words. Momentarily unsure how to respond to my question, seeing the teacher remain silent, Lin Yu grew anxious. Having finally caught another opportunity, how could she possibly let me off so easily? "Ai Ching, the teacher is just concerned about you. How can you speak to the teacher like that? Teacher Zhang taught us that one must be honest. It's okay if your grades aren't good, but deceiving yourself like this is irresponsible to yourself and a great insult to those classmates who study diligently every day. One should not be so selfish." Lin Yu once again displayed her righteous indignation, her words prompting the homeroom teacher to nod repeatedly in agreement. "That's right, Ai Ching. The teacher can tolerate your poor academic performance, but I absolutely cannot tolerate you being such a dishonest person. I think I should call your parents and let them know about your situation at school." After finishing speaking, the homeroom teacher dialed my parents' phone number. It happened that both of them were in the city for some errands, and they arrived at the school within half an hour. Watching the plainly dressed couple standing somewhat awkwardly in the office, my heart inexplicably welled up with a wave of sorrow and discomfort. Standing before the teacher. When they heard the teacher say that I had cheated and still refused to admit it, both my parents looked at me with disbelief. Their faces were etched with the marks of hardship and time, and they looked at me for a long while without saying a word. Eventually, it was the original host's father who broke the silence, asking me sternly, "Is what the teacher said true? Did you really cheat?" I was just about to deny it, but Lin Yu didn't give me the chance. She quickly handed my past grades to my father as evidence and said urgently, "Uncle, these are all Ai Ching's previous grades. You'll understand once you see them." I glanced at Lin Yu, who was pursing her lips to hold back a laugh, and finally understood why she had insisted on staying in the office and refusing to leave. So she had been waiting for me here all along, but she had miscalculated one thing. "Mom, Dad, I admit that I neglected my studies before, which led to my grades slipping. But I've already realized my mistake. This time, I absolutely did not cheat. I earned this grade entirely on my own." I looked up, my face showing not a trace of guilt, which immediately drew a soft, mocking laugh from Lin Yu beside me. My parents held the report card, studying it for a long time. After hearing my words, they fell silent for a while. when they finally looked up, the earlier unease on their faces had vanished, replaced only by the unconditional trust parents have for their daughter. Teacher, we believe our daughter did not cheat, we know her, this child doesn't lie, Lin Yu immediately said. But, we came from the countryside, didn't have much schooling, and can't say anything particularly learned, we're usually too busy. On one hand, we don't know how to teach a child properly, and on the other, we don't have the time to look after her. She got into the city on her own efforts, and we're already very proud of her. I know it's not easy for you teachers to guide students. Our Qingqing still needs the school's teachers to put in extra effort. Her mother and I can't really help her much. Her mother and I have discussed it these past few days, and we thought it might be best to donate a new teaching building to the school. It's our way of expressing gratitude to the teachers for educating our daughter. My father spoke as if it were nothing, then took out a pre-written check from his pocket and placed it on the homeroom teacher's desk. He completely failed to notice that the teachers in the office were all wide-eyed and utterly shocked. The homeroom teacher trembled as she took the check with 6 zeros on it, holding it as if it were a bomb that could explode at any moment. It took her a long time to barely regain her voice before she finally asked, "Ai Qing, I remember you were raising cows in the countryside, weren't you? The tuition for Ai Qing. It seems you had to sell a cow to gather enough money, right?" "Oh, yes." My dad nodded. With over 3,000 cows, selling one or two is nothing, not just cows. We also have dozens of acres of orchards and over 10 acres of fish ponds at home. This is just a small amount of money, not worth mentioning. This time, not only the homeroom teacher but even Lin Yu was left stunned, their faces twitching uncontrollably. She seemed completely unable to grasp that when I mentioned buying a few cows to scrape together the tuition, it didn't mean my family only had a few cows. She never stopped to consider that if the original family's situation was truly as she imagined, how could they possibly afford to live in the best located school district apartment in the entire city, and how could they have had any extra money left over to buy the expensive cosmetics and clothes she recommended? Did she really think that money was squeezed out from the original owner's teeth? Idiot. The news that my parents were going to donate a building to the school caught the attention of the principal. To express his gratitude, he personally took my parents on a tour of the school and even called in reporters to take photos at the school gate. Within a few days, my parents were featured in the newspaper as rural entrepreneurs and philanthropists, and the fact that I was a nouveau riche spread throughout the entire school in an instant. The previous accusation of me cheating was dropped, and now I was in the spotlight again. Lin Yu was so furious she was almost on the verge of a breakdown. The stepping stone she once looked down upon the most had not only slipped from her control but also taken her place. Naturally, Lin Yu was unwilling to accept this, yet, no matter how unwilling she was, it made no difference. There was something she had forgotten, but I still remembered it clearly. On the day of the Monday flag-raising ceremony, in full view of everyone, the police took Lin Yu away on charges of suspected invasion of privacy and spreading fabricated rumors about others. Under the scornful gazes of the crowd, Lin Yu almost instantly broke down, shouting that she had done nothing wrong as she was dragged away by the police in a humiliating manner. Husbands and wives are like birds in the same forest. When disaster strikes, they fly their separate ways. Xiao Zai broke up with Lin Yu almost immediately. After a morning run, he blocked my path. By that time, I had already slimmed down to just over 120 pounds, though not exactly thin. I was healthy. In just 3 short months, I had transformed almost completely. My once oily face had become exceptionally smooth and delicate. I had swapped my glasses for contact lenses, and my sparkling eyes were like stars in the night sky, captivating anyone who looked into them. I Ching. I know I've done many things that hurt you before, but these past few days I've witnessed your changes firsthand, and I must admit, I'm drawn to you. Xiao Zai gazed at me, his eyes no longer cold as before, now carrying a touch of what felt like comical affection. I apologize for my past actions. Can you forgive me and give me a chance to pursue you? His face was filled with anticipation, waiting for my response. I looked at the young man before me without speaking, for at that moment, I was searching for the soul hiding in the corner of my heart, pulling her out, to agree or to refuse. This is your choice. I looked at that still plump soul, her head lowered as she hesitated in place, lost in thought. The task you entrusted to me back then is now complete, and I must leave. Hearing these words, the girl suddenly raised her head, looking at me with a panicked expression. Are you leaving so soon? Could you stay with me a little longer? She held my hand. Her expression filled with hesitation and reluctance. It was exactly the same as when I first arrived in this world 3 months ago. 3 months ago, I received a special commission. At that time, I had just finished a revenge mission in a small world and was preparing to go home for a vacation. But the moment I saw this commission, I hesitated. Seeing her appearance, I seemed to recall my former self, being used, being framed, unable to speak out, with nowhere to turn. She is like a tiny microcosm, reminding me of the time when I felt most helpless. I couldn't help but want to hold an umbrella for her, so I took on this task, gaining the temporary right to control her body. For the past 3 months, she has been hiding within her own body. Occasionally, I would return control of the body to her, as I hope she can walk this path of turning her life around on her own. You are amazing. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone. Be more confident and just be yourself. I reached out and cupped her face, pressing my forehead against hers, hoping this would give her strength. I could only help her this much. The road ahead, the life that belongs to her, she must walk it on her own. I'm amazing. Ai Ching nodded, took my hand, and her gaze gradually grew resolute. The originally plump soul gradually thinned out. I gave her an encouraging smile, then stepped aside from the body. I slowly drifted out of the body. Watching as Ai Ching regained control of her own form, under Xiao Zai's expectant gaze, she took a deep breath and then spat right in his face. Pa, a second-hand man like you trying to reach for the stars, keep dreaming, stay away from me, you scumbag. I look at this scene with a gratified smile. That's it, my girl. In the future, no matter what difficulties you encounter, always move forward with confidence, courage, and kindness. Your life is destined to be infinitely wonderful. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I am the female lead's best friend. In the grand finale, the female lead matched me with the wealthy second male lead. Su Xian said, if Qiuqiu wants me to marry you, then I'll do as she wishes. When Qiuqiu comes back, we'll get a divorce. I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue. I didn't tell him that I've actually had a crush on him for many years, nor did I tell him that the second male lead can never take the lead. I'm afraid we're going to spend a lifetime together, but I never expected. Shortly after the grand finale, the female lead truly regretted her choices. She came to Su Xian and said, I'm divorced. Will you marry me? By the time I became aware, the story was nearing its end. Su Qiuqiu, the adopted daughter of the wealthy Su family, and Zhou Yanling, an auto mechanic, overcame countless obstacles to get married. At the same time, the Su family discovered Su Xian's feelings for Su Qiuqiu and urged him to find someone to marry immediately. So, Su Qiuqiu introduced Su Xian to me. She said to me, don't be fooled by my brother's stern appearance. He's always been so good to me. Su Qiuqiu invited us to the amusement park, then found an excuse to run off. Before leaving, she mischievously gave me a push, just as I almost bumped into Su Xian. He took a step back. I nearly fell. The moment Su Qiuqiu disappeared, Su Xian's gentle smile vanished instantly. His frameless glasses reflected his icy expression. To be fair, he is the most handsome man I have ever seen. Refined, restrained, very daddy. Unfortunately, Su Xian and I are not a good match. I am the ordinary supporting female character who sets off the female lead, while he is the male lead with the script of a tall, rich, and handsome man. Everything about him is top tier. Facing him, I never even had the courage to confess my feelings, but I never expected Su Xian to nod. Without even looking at me, he said calmly, Miss Chen, I can marry you. I stood there in a daze, my heart racing, knowing it's impossible, but people are often blinded by slim hopes. Fortunately, he soon cleared things up for me. For me, if it's not Qiuqiu, marrying anyone else is the same. Since she wants me to marry you, I'll do as she wishes. Wow, so romantic. When Su Xian and I walked out of the amusement park, Su Qiuqiu was still at the entrance. Seeing us finish so quickly, a flash of understanding and delight crossed her eyes. Su Xian's eyes also lit up. Su Qiuqiu's gaze shifted back and forth between me and Su Xian several times. Then, with a hint of reproach, she playfully punched Su Xian's chest muscle. She complained in a tone that was also coquettish, Brother, why didn't you have a good time with Shu Shu? She's my best friend. Don't tell me you look down on her. The light and shadow in Su Xian's eyes flickered and then faded into darkness as he said, "No, I proposed to Chen Shu, and she agreed." Su Qiuqiu was stunned. Logically speaking, I shouldn't have agreed. Anyone with eyes can see that Su Xian only has eyes for Su Qiuqiu. But I just got off the phone with my parents last night, being urged to get married. This morning, I also received a layoff notice. My education is average, my job is average, and my family background is average. If it weren't for the Su family urging marriage, and Su Qiuqiu not wanting to let the benefits flow to outsiders, I wouldn't even have the qualification to go on a blind date with Su Xian, let alone become Mrs. Su. I'm a worldly person, thinking, if there's no love, marrying for money is also good, and what if, anyway? The female lead and the second male lead are destined not to end up together, just like that. Life fast-forwarded to the day Su Xian and I got married. Ever since the wedding invitations were sent out, my life has reached its peak moment. Relatives and friends come to visit, smiling obsequiously. I suddenly became the daughter my parents are most proud of. The first time my in-laws met me, they gave me a red envelope containing $1 million. Su Qiuqiu looked at my pigeon egg-sized diamond ring, bit her lip, and said, "Shu Shu, how could you pick such an expensive diamond ring? This is my brother's money, after all, not what you earned yourself." But her wedding ring was also bought by Zhou Yanling. The difference is that I have 20 million, while she has 2,000. I don't mind her bossing me around. After all, if she gets upset, Su Xian can call off the engagement on the spot. I let out a bitter laugh and said, "Qiuqiu, your brother only married me as a decoration. The one he truly loves is still you. I envy you for marrying for love, while I only have cold hard cash." Su Qiuqiu's eyes sparkled with a hint of glee. "Shu Shu, you mustn't say that. I would never, ever like my brother." Su Xian happened to hear this sentence when he arrived. The sorrow in his eyes was hard to dissolve. With a hint of defiance, he took my hand and said, "Let's go, Mom and Dad are waiting for us." That day, Su Xian drank a lot of wine. He kept his eyes fixed on Su Qiuqiu as he drank one cup after another. His stare made Zhou Yanling's expression turn ugly, and his in-laws' faces darkened. Soon, it was late at night. We returned to the villa wedding suite. Su Xian walked unsteadily. He fell onto the sofa, his glasses fell off, his collar was open, and his handsome face was flushed, so handsome it made one blush. I understood even more why Su Qiuqiu wanted him to marry me. With me, there will be no other women, and Su Xian would never look at me, so he'd have to remain chaste for her, just like now. He says, "Chen Shu, I won't have anything with you. Don't hope for things you shouldn't think about. Just be content as Mrs. Su." The disgust and disdain in his eyes were clearly visible. After saying this, he soon breathed steadily and fell asleep. I looked at his face with closed eyes, feeling somewhat dazed. If it were someone who truly wanted to be his wife, hearing this would probably be very sad. Of course, I'm not completely unaffected either, because I, too, once had feelings for him. My friendship with Su Qiuqiu began during our school days. Back then, I had already met Su Xian. Su Qiuqiu and I were locked in a toilet cubicle by the malicious female supporting character. Zhou Yanling climbed in through the window and rescued Su Qiuqiu. They forgot about me. Su Xian arrived a step too late and only managed to rescue me. I still remember how his eyes were filled with me. He broke the mop blocking the door with his bare hands. "Don't be afraid, your brother is late." No one had ever been so concerned about me before. But the moment his gaze fell on me, he saw my appearance clearly. Upon learning of Su Qiuqiu's whereabouts, the broken look in the young man's eyes made my heart ache. That night, I returned home very late, and as soon as I stepped through the door, I was met with a slap. Feeling bold, "Are we, whose bed did you crawl into to come back this late?" My mother's voice was loud. The neighbor poked their head out to watch the commotion. No one paid any attention to my explanation. Fortunately, later on, Su Xian made that supporting female character come to our house to apologize. He did it for Su Qiuqiu, and I benefited from it too. My mom's expression looked guilty for a moment, but she didn't apologize for wrongly accusing me. After this incident, I started secretly having a crush on Su Xian. I also subtly tried to ask Su Qiuqiu what type Su Xian liked. She tilted her head, her smile innocent. "Maybe someone like me." I was taken aback. "Aren't you siblings?" After that, Su Qiuqiu seemed to deliberately get close to Su Xian in front of me. She would throw herself into his arms, wrap her arms around his, or have Su Xian feed her. Su Xian's gaze was as gentle as water, almost enough to drown a person. What else is there for me to not understand? For me, it was love at first sight, but his eyes have never held me. The protagonist lives the protagonist's life, supporting characters, in plots that do not intersect with the protagonist, also live their own lives, graduating, finding a job, and going on blind dates, all in due course. It's not that every unrequited love must be reciprocated. It's not to say that liking someone has to be a life or death matter. We ordinary people don't have the energy for that. The joys of youth have long been drowned in the monotonous grind of daily life. The next day, Su Xian woke up. He looked at the blanket covering him, his gaze thoughtful. Last night was our wedding night, and the servants in the villa were given the day off. It must have been me who covered him. For the next 2 months, Su Xian did not return. I began to suspect that he might have discovered something, but soon I became too busy to dwell on such thoughts. There was simply too much for me to learn. In addition to social interactions and daily household management, one must also learn to review accounts and financial reports, as well as understand social etiquette, luxury goods, and more. These were all completely unfamiliar matters, and I found it very difficult to learn. As for where Su Xian went, I only found out from Su Qiuqiu. She said in surprise, "My brother went to France on a business trip. He just texted me yesterday. Didn't he tell you a single word?" While I said, no, with a hint of grievance, I booked a spa package for myself on my phone. Ever since we got married, I've had Su Xian's supplementary card. Though it's tiring, at least there's money. You don't have to make choices when shopping. I also did things I once wanted to do but couldn't. I donated money to a stray animal rescue organization and sponsored several girls from the mountains. How many people envy such a life? At first, that's what I thought, but people are never satisfied. Life always brings unexpected events. Su Qiuqiu and Zhou Yanling had a fierce conflict. Zhou Yanling discovered that his major clients were actually introduced by the Su family. Late at night, he kicked Su Qiuqiu out of the car on the highway. When I picked her up, she had lost one of her shoes. I took her back to the villa. There is a room in the villa that is exclusively hers. To defend Zhou Yanling, she said, "Shoo shoo. You mustn't tell my brother, and don't tell my parents either. But even if I don't say anything, the matter will still reach Su Xian's ears." He returned overnight. A private jet was used. A dedicated flight route was opened. I got up in the middle of the night to look for food, passed by Su Qiuqiu's room, and saw him. The door was open, with dim light inside. Su Xian knelt by her bedside. "If you were really hurt, what would I do?" I didn't look any longer and quietly left. After a while, I ran into Su Xian again in the living room. He still carried the weariness of a long journey, and when he looked at me, there was a bit more warmth in his gaze than before. "Thank you for this time." I suddenly felt a bit envious, not envious of Su Qiuqiu receiving Su Xian's love, but envious that she has someone who loves her wholeheartedly. The next day, I also received a gift brought back from France, a diamond brooch. It was purchased in bulk for gifting purposes, and I was given one from the batch. As for Su Qiuqiu, she received an entire trunk full, but Su Qiuqiu refused. "Thank you, brother," but Yanling would be upset. Su Xian said nothing, his eyelashes lowering to conceal the disappointment in his eyes. In the end, these gifts still found their way into Su Qiuqiu's hands through various means. Some were from her friends, some were suddenly given by the company, and others were won in department store raffles. Not only that, when the weather turned cold, Su Xian would have heaters sent to Su Qiuqiu's workplace and delay her start time. When it rained, he would arrange for Su Qiuqiu's colleagues to pretend to be going her way and give her a ride home. He never hid these things from me when he did them. I was like a bystander to their love. As time went by, I couldn't help but wonder, what if I hadn't married Su Xian? Would I have met someone who loved me like this? My relationship with Su Xian as roommates was fairly harmonious, not too hot, not too cold. Holiday gifts and some daily necessities were all chosen by the secretary, but sometimes Su Xian would sit down and have a meal with me. I cooked twice, and Su Xian was very sharp. Noticing it wasn't made by the aunt, he paused his chopsticks and said, "That's good." But soon, my relationship with Su Xian reached a major breakthrough. Zhou Yanling discovered that Su Qiuqiu had stayed at Su Xian's villa that night. He went to Su Xian's company and smashed a bunch of things. Su Qiuqiu cried out in despair, "My brother is already married. There's nothing between us." Zhou Yanling sneered. "Do you think I'm stupid? How could Su Xian possibly really like Chen Shu? She's just a cover for you all. Su Qiuqiu flushed red, unable to defend herself. Seeing Zhou Yanling's face growing darker and darker, fortunately, at that moment, I pushed the door open and walked in. Su Qiuqiu seemed to have spotted a savior all of a sudden. She grabbed me and stuffed my hand into Su Xian's, then spoke up. Yanling misunderstood. Brother, you and Shu Shu are clearly very much in love. Su Xian's hands are very large. The palm was warm and moist, gently enveloping my hand. Zhou Yanling looked utterly unconvinced. Don't even talk about going to bed. I bet you haven't even kissed, have you? If you have the guts, kiss right now. His hand holding mine stiffened. Su Qiuqiu looked at Su Xian once more, her eyes filled with pleading. I looked up and saw Su Xian's jawline tense, his entire body rigid. He didn't move. I remembered the broken boy from back then, recalling the plot. He watched helplessly as Su Qiuqiu left with Zhou Yanling time and time again. He stood there all alone, just like now. I sighed. Before Su Xian could react, I reached for his arm and kissed his lips. I whispered, "Forgive my intrusion." Su Qiuqiu's eyes widened in shock. Su Xian instinctively tried to dodge, but I grabbed his hair, holding his head in place. Our lips met, the sensation soft and tender. Su Xian's face flushed red, his thick eyelashes fluttering rapidly. I casually removed his cumbersome glasses. A crisp, cool scent of perfume drifted into my nostrils. The hand gripping my arm seemed to tense up, veins bulging from nervousness. I didn't end the kiss right away. After all, Zhou Yanling isn't stupid, but mainly because I didn't want to. After that day, Su Xian started avoiding me. The number of times we ate together suddenly decreased. Communication during meals was almost non-existent. The relationship that had just taken a step forward seemed to have retreated back to where it was. I somewhat regret taking advantage of this, but I have to admit, Su Xian is really good to kiss. His reaction when kissing him is as pure as a virgin's. Oh wait, he is one. At the same time, Su Qiuqiu and Zhou Yanling have made up again, but I always feel something is a bit off. Zhou Yanling has become more in tune. He no longer clings to his auto repair shop and has started trying to integrate into the Su family's social circle. A business cocktail party. I heard someone talking about Zhou Yanling. Look at his arrogant attitude. Does he really think he's that capable? He's just relying on the Su family. After they left, I saw Zhou Yanling standing in a hidden spot. His face was hidden in the darkness, unclear. I didn't take this little incident to heart. A few days later, in the middle of the night, as I passed by the living room, I saw a figure on the sofa. It's Su Xian. Before I could speak, I heard him say, "Qiuqiu is pregnant." His voice was flat, without any fluctuation. I didn't know what to say, so I went to get a blanket and draped it over him. He didn't want the lights on, so I didn't turn them on. I sat down beside him, turned on the TV, and picked a movie. I also brought 2 bottles of wine. Su Xian didn't make a sound the whole time. He didn't refuse, so I took it as his agreement. It's a romance film. In this film, the male lead initially doesn't like the female lead. They break up and get back together, ultimately confirming their love for each other. A cliché plot. Su Xian watched very intently. Perhaps he was wondering if Su Qiuqiu would change her mind like the male lead in the movie. He drank several glasses. 2 drops of wine trickled down his chin, sliding over his Adam's apple and slender neck. Su Xian seemed drunk, otherwise he wouldn't have asked such a question. "Chen Shu, where exactly am I inferior to Zhou Yanling?" I recalled the novel's setting. Su Xian is the heir of the Su family and has been strictly disciplined since childhood. Back then, it was always Su Qiuqiu who accompanied him. When Su Xian was young, he failed to meet his parents' expectations and got injured on his face during a beating. Su Qiuqiu put a band-aid on him. That band-aid with the little flower design is still treasured by Su Xian to this day. They encouraged each other and grew together. At that time, Su Qiuqiu said to Su Xian, "Brother, I will always be by your side." Su Xian took it seriously. Later on, he always became the most outstanding one. He is the top student in his grade, and he is the student council president. He reported the school for not distributing financial aid according to regulations and also established a scholarship fund. He stopped bullying and donated a computer lab. I benefited from every single one of these actions. He walked ahead, and I stood on the path behind him, stepping into the footprints he left behind. It made the originally rugged road much easier to walk, in my eyes. Su Xian is better than Zhou Yanling in every way, so, the real question he wanted to ask was, why does Su Qiuqiu like Zhou Yanling and not him? I can't give an answer. After thinking for a moment, I said, Su Xian, you don't need to compare yourself to anyone. Su Xian suddenly looked up at me. After that day, Su Xian came back more often. He occasionally brought me gifts himself. The aunt in the villa didn't come often. Sometimes when I cook, he'll voluntarily do the dishes. After dinner, I like to take a walk, and he follows along. He said, I've lived here for a few years but never really took the time to appreciate this villa area. I didn't know there was such a view here. As he spoke, there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. He takes me to important occasions, holding my waist, lowering his head and gaze, speaking softly in my ear. Apart from not sleeping together, we are quite like a married couple, the kind that respects each other like guests. After some more time, I became more adept at the role of Mrs. Su, and my free time increased. Su Xian seemed to have noticed as well. I once casually mentioned that I wanted to open my own coffee shop. Su Xian gave it to me. That day, after so many years, once again, I felt my heart racing. I couldn't help but think, since Su Qiuqiu is already married, then, maybe there's still a chance for me. Su Qiuqiu suggested a trip for the four of us. Once my belly gets big, I won't be able to go out and have fun anymore, brother. You and Shu Shu haven't had a honeymoon yet, right? Su Xian asked me, do you want to go? I said indifferently, sure. On the way, Su Qiuqiu and Zhou Yanling were very affectionate. Su Xian sometimes stared at their playful backs, lost in thought. It was too obvious. I tugged at his sleeve to remind him. He came back to his senses and gave me a soft, arriving at the seaside hotel. Su Xian and I were staying in the same room for the first time. Su Xian glanced at the sofa. I asked the waiter to add an extra blanket. I said, this way, no one has to sleep on the sofa. Su Xian did not object, but that night, somehow, I ended up rolling into Su Xian's blanket. The window was open, and the sea breeze blew in, making it a bit cold. Half asleep, I couldn't help but move closer to the warmth. When I realized what the source of heat was, my entire body froze. I stealthily tried to shift away. Just then, Su Xian suddenly extended his long arm and pulled me back. He whispered in my ear, weren't you shivering from the cold? I've caught a cold, so I won't be able to swim tomorrow. His voice was thick with a nasal tone, low and hoarse. Clearly, he wasn't fully awake either. Half of my body went numb, and in a daze, I snuggled into Su Xian's embrace. Perhaps there's something special about the male and female leads. Su Qiuqiu had another accident. While swimming in the sea, her leg cramped up, just as a huge wave was about to crash down. Zhou Yanling and Su Xian both jumped into the sea to save her. The rescue personnel threw a lifeboat over. I stood on the shore, watching Su Qiuqiu desperately grab Zhou Yanling's hand as the two of them boarded the lifeboat together. In their haste to get ashore, they left Su Xian forgotten in the sea. The waves crashed down, and Su Xian disappeared from sight. Without much hesitation, I took a deep breath and jumped into the sea. The first thing I saw when I woke up was Su Xian. He sat by my bed, gazing at me intently. The moment our eyes met, his seemed to light up. He looked at me, remaining silent for a long time, feeling a bit awkward under his gaze. I tried to make conversation. Are you okay? Su Xian didn't answer. The atmosphere became a bit strange. Just as I couldn't help but want to find something to do, he finally spoke up. I'm fine, and you? I laughed. Haha, I'm perfectly fine, no need to worry, I'm a very good swimmer. When I was little, I was kicked into the river several times while washing clothes. Su Xian was taken aback. He turned his face away and went to pour me some water. I thought I saw the corners of his eyes turn slightly red. Was it because my words just now sounded too pitiful? I quickly added, it's not a big deal. In fact, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I taught myself how to swim. When I was a child, they always liked to wrongfully accuse me. Once, it was because of you that I was finally cleared of the false accusations. I'm not afraid of them anymore. I spoke to him in a light-hearted tone about the past. Su Xian brought the water for the fever to my lips and softly said, no one will dare to wrong you again in the future. I promise. I was taken aback for a moment. Okay. The trip did not end because of this incident. I'm physically fine, but I don't go swimming in the sea much anymore, spending most of my time sunbathing on the shore. Su Xian might have been left with a bit of psychological trauma. as he also stayed on the shore, sitting beside me. Even when Su Qiuqiu called him to go play water fights, he didn't go. I suddenly felt like having barbecue. Su Xian had someone bring over a barbecue grill, but when he was about to buy the ingredients, I stopped him. I said I wanted to buy them myself. Su Xian nodded and grabbed the car keys. He looked as if it was only natural that he would go with me. I was stunned for a moment. Then, the corners of my lips curled up. In the following days, Su Qiuqiu and Zhou Yanling argued constantly. After the affection between two people from different family backgrounds, returning to life, there were only frictions. Su Qiuqiu wanted to go to the swimsuit party on the luxury yacht, but Zhou Yanling disagreed. While the two were arguing fiercely, Su Xian was applying sunscreen to my back. When Su Qiuqiu angrily ran over, Su Xian was helping me open a coconut. Su Qiuqiu both coquettishly pleaded and complained to Su Xian. She spoke for a long time, but the usual comfort she was accustomed to never came. Su Xian only said, "Shu Shu and I are going shopping later." Su Qiuqiu looked at Su Xian in disbelief. "Brother, you're not still angry about what happened the other day, are you? I already explained it to you. The situation was critical at the time, and Yan Ling was closer to me." No, the first one to swim toward her was Su Xian, but she avoided Su Xian's hand and even pushed him away, using the force to throw herself into Zhou Yanling's arms. However, Su Xian didn't argue with her. Instead, he draped a coat over me, and we left together. Su Qiuqiu's face turned pale as she looked at Su Xian with a pitiful expression. "Brother," Zhou Yanling watched this scene, a sarcastic smile curling at the corner of his mouth. After the trip, Su Xian and I returned to the Su family home together. We brought gifts for both Mr. and Mrs. Su. During the meal, Mom Su was just about to put a bite of food into my bowl. Su Xian suddenly spoke up. "She doesn't eat this." Mom Su was slightly taken aback, then smiled. All right. As I walked out of the Su family's gate, a gust of wind happened to blow by. I hadn't even felt the cold yet when Su Xian draped his overcoat over my shoulders. The autumn air was crisp and refreshing. It dawned on me belatedly, something between Su Xian and me seemed to have already changed. But soon, reality gave me a harsh wake-up call. "Tell me, this is just my illusion." Su Xian reduced his support for Zhou Yanling's company. Zhou Yanling was overwhelmed for quite some time. I had a premonition. But when I learned that he was taking Su Qiuqiu to a rather questionable private banquet to build connections, I still couldn't believe it. Su Qiuqiu is still pregnant. I didn't have time to inform Su Xian and hurried over. I stopped them just as Zhou Yanling was about to take Su Qiuqiu into the top-floor private room. Su Qiuqiu was completely unaware and even seemed a bit unhappy about my sudden appearance. I said, "I'm going too." Zhou Yanling looked at me, his gaze carrying a deep scrutiny. The eye contact lasted too long. Su Qiuqiu tightly held onto Zhou Yanling's arm, looking at me with some hostility. Only then did Zhou Yanling lazily speak up. "I don't have the authority to bring an extra person." I understood. I laughed. "Su Xian's wife is more attractive than yours, isn't she?" I saw Zhou Yanling grit his back teeth. A moment later, he spat out a few words. "You asked for it." He mercilessly pulled his arm out of Su Qiuqiu's grasp. Su Qiuqiu stared at us in disbelief. "Chen Shu, how could you do this to me? How could you seduce Yanling?" She was so angry that she blurted out, "Is it because my brother doesn't touch you, and you can't stand the loneliness, so you're deliberately taking revenge on me?" Zhou Yanling listened, showing no surprise on his face. Su Qiuqiu was too noisy and was driven out by the service staff. As for me, I straightened my back and followed Zhou Yanling into the private room. I didn't dare to relax for a moment throughout the entire process. I ignored those lecherous gazes, emphasizing in every word how much Su Xian liked me. I walked out of the private room, already covered in a layer of cold sweat. Just as I was about to call Su Xian, his name had already appeared on my phone screen a step ahead. I answered the call. Su Xian's voice came through the phone. "Qiuqiu was in a car accident." Su Qiuqiu, in a state of agitation, rushed onto the road. Before being hit, she called me over a dozen times. There was no signal in the top-floor private room, so I didn't receive a single call. Before losing consciousness, her last words were, "Chen Shu, why would you do this?" When I arrived at the hospital, Su Xian was waiting outside the ICU. "Su Xian, I can explain." "I don't want to hear it." Su Xian looked up at me. His gaze was piercingly cold. "Chen Shu, if I find out it was you who did it, I froze in place, as if someone had poured a bucket of ice water over my head. All the little hidden joys from the past vanished completely in an instant. It seems like it was all just me being overly sentimental. For a full 24 hours, Su Xian stayed by Su Qiuqiu's side without eating or drinking. Finally, Su Qiuqiu was out of life-threatening danger. The child wasn't saved, but it was still a stroke of luck. Su Xian breathed a sigh of relief, as if all the strength had drained from his body. It was the middle of the night, so I took the opportunity to return to the villa, quickly prepared 2 dishes, and brought them to the hospital. I handed over the lunchbox. Have something to eat. Su Xian glanced at it and didn't say a word. The secretary stepped forward. Madam, let me hold that for you. President Su isn't hungry right now. Su Qiuqiu woke up on the 3rd day. I was stopped outside the ward. In the hospital room, Su Qiuqiu broke down in tears. Su Xian said, "Don't be afraid, I'm here for everything." Zhou Yanling walked up to me, smiling sarcastically. "Look at how they treat you. After all you've done for that brother and sister, that's just how the rich are. They are very selfish. My card has been frozen, both my parents have been laid off. That doesn't matter, but the stray animal shelter I donated to has been reported." The girl working at the shelter said they might not be able to keep going. All the kittens might have to be euthanized. I went to Su Xian's company and waited downstairs for 3 hours, employees passing by steal glances at me. I once came here as Mrs. Su, but now I don't even receive the treatment of a high-level visitor. In the end, I'm told that Su Xian had urgent business and has gone out again. The kittens can't wait. I tried every possible way to contact Su Xian. I sent text messages to Su Xian explaining the whole story, but they all went unanswered. When I called, the line was busy. I even went to find Zhou Yanling to vouch for me. He looked at me with some amusement. "Just for a few cats." I nodded. "Yes, Chen Shu, are you dreaming? Do you think I would be so selfless for your cats?" I looked at Zhou Yanling, my gaze calm. Back then, he and Su Qiuqiu met when they both rescued the same stray cat. Su Qiuqiu didn't like Su Xian, but she liked him instead. As Su Qiuqiu put it was because Zhou Yanling was more humane and felt more alive. But Zhou Yanling slammed the door in my face. Just when I thought I was at the end of my rope, Zhou Yanling eventually went to find Su Qiuqiu. He tried to justify himself, saying, "I was deceived too, thinking it was just an ordinary party. Who knew it would be that kind of?" As for Chen Shu, she came to save someone. I really have nothing to do with her. She came into the private room with me, and all the men were looking at her. Even though she's not particularly attractive, she is Mrs. Su, after all. Before he could finish his sentence, Su Xian punched him. 3 teeth were knocked out. He spat out a mouthful of blood and smiled at Su Xian. "What's your reason for hitting me? I'm a victim too. It wasn't me who wronged Chen Shu." When Su Xian returned, I was tidying up my things. He stood at the door of my bedroom, holding what seemed to be an apology gift in his hand. "I was wrong to blame you." I shook my head and said, "It's okay. I know you were just too worried about Qiuqiu. I understand. If I were you, and something like this happened to someone I love, I'd only be more anxious." Su Xian retorted. "It's not someone I love." I interrupted him. "It doesn't matter anymore. It's all in the past now. I've already come to terms with it. There are several tissues in the trash can by the bed." Before Su Xian arrived, I had already shed tears. "It's fine. I wasn't that sad either. After all, I'm used to being wrongfully accused. The missing $2 from home must have been taken by me." Mom went out without an umbrella. It must have been because I deliberately didn't remind her. I just never expected that this time the one accusing me would be Su Xian. But it seems there's nothing that doesn't make sense. He is the male lead for the female protagonist, not for me. Su Xian handed the gift to me. I didn't stand on ceremony and accepted it. It was a diamond necklace, clearly very valuable. Such a valuable item probably wouldn't sell well in the seafood market. While I was lost in thought, I didn't notice Su Xian staring at me, distracted. I looked up and smiled at him. "Thank you, I really like it." Su Xian seemed to let out a sigh of relief. He said, "Tonight, I've booked a restaurant." I looked at him with a bit of distress. "I'm sorry. I have a fitness class scheduled for tonight." Su Xian quickly asked, "How about tomorrow night then?" "Tomorrow night is the investment class. The day after tomorrow, the day after that, or whenever you're free." I looked at him with a troubled expression. Su Xian seemed to finally catch on. His face gradually paled. After that day, Su Xian came back almost every day. the one who rarely returned to the villa became me. My coffee shop is doing quite well, of course. A large part of the credit goes to Su Sion. The location is great, the equipment is top-notch, and the beans are excellent. Su Sion even specifically ran advertisements for it. I pretended to be busy at the coffee shop, leaving early and returning late to avoid running into Su Sion. But that day, I came back from the shop at midnight. The living room light was still on. Su Sion was watching a movie on the sofa. It's the one we watched together last time. It's playing the part where the female lead says to the male lead, and then you meet someone, your life changes from then on, forever. Hearing the noise, he got up and walked over. As I was changing my shoes, he poured me a glass of water. When I took it, my fingertips brushed against Su Sion's. His fingers trembled slightly. I set the water glass down and took off my coat. The top button seemed to have caught my hair. When I pulled, it tugged at my scalp, and I winced in pain. Su Sion brushed my hand aside, lowered his head, and helped me undo the button. His tall, straight nose was right before my eyes, his gaze lowered, his eyelashes trembling slightly, and the tips of his ears tinged with a faint blush. Somehow, the atmosphere suddenly turned a bit ambiguous. Even though the button was undone, Su Sion didn't straighten up immediately. He stared at me intently, his breath close at hand. Chen Shu, I took a step back with a smile and said, Su Sion. Nothing will ever happen between you and me. That line felt strangely familiar. Su Sion's throat tightened. As I set down the water glass and headed upstairs, Su Sion spoke up again. Chen Shu, want to watch a movie together? He looked at me, as if mustering up the courage to ask, his fingers unconsciously tightening. I said, no, it's too late, maybe next time. We said, next time, but we both knew it was just a casual excuse. Su Sion treats me better and better. He mostly works from home and often cooks meals. They are all my favorite dishes. Occasionally, when he goes on business trips, he brings gifts back for me. He picked them all out himself. He seems dedicated to repairing our relationship, but he doesn't understand that this is as far as we can go. For me, no room for the future, nor the courage to move forward. The days were dull and somewhat difficult to endure. Until, a rainy night, someone knocked on the villa's front door. Su Qiuqiu stood at the entrance, completely drenched. The moment she saw Su Sion, she burst into tears. She threw herself into Su Sion's arms and said, brother, I'm divorced. Will you marry me? After all, you've always liked me. Su Sion turned around and saw me, instantly freezing in place. Su Qiuqiu was still crying loudly. I considerately returned to my room, leaving the space for them. Su Sion's lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something. Lying in bed, my mood began to lift. Before getting our marriage certificate, Su Sion and I had signed a prenuptial agreement. He also made 2 agreements with me. First, do not cross the line. Second, if Su Qiuqiu gets divorced, we will divorce as well. He said that if we divorce, he would give me a lot of compensation. Soon, I began to feel drowsy, in that half-asleep, half-awake state. Someone pushed the door open and stood before my bed. Chen Shu. He softly called my name, filled with endless sorrow. Early the next morning, I woke up full of energy. Su Sion was already seated at the dining table. While eating breakfast, I heard him say, last night, I asked the nanny to take care of Qiuqiu. She was emotionally unstable and is still sleeping now. I nodded and said, okay, don't worry, I'll be careful and won't upset her. Chen Shu, that's not what I meant. Su Sion sighed and said, Qiuqiu wants to stay here for a while. Is that okay? I was a bit confused. Is this something I can decide? Su Sion seemed to notice my confusion and said, if you don't like it, I can turn her down. I shook my head. Don't do that. Isn't she emotionally unstable? Besides, I don't dislike it. It's actually quite nice. After breakfast, Su Sion tentatively asked, can I take you to the shop today? He had brought this up before, but I had always refused. But today, I didn't refuse. Seeing that I agreed, Su Sion's eyes lit up instantly. He immediately stood up. Wait a moment, I'll be right back. He went back to his room and soon came down again. He seemed to have dressed up. I noticed his meticulously styled hair, the exquisite tie clip, and caught a whiff of his crisp cologne. He looked at me with a gentle smile in his eyes. Let's go. His joy lasted until he got into the car, and I pulled the divorce papers out of my bag. Su Sion remained silent for a long time before speaking. Did you already? I didn't deny it. Yes. I've wanted to leave for a long time, ever since I couldn't get through to Su Sion on the phone. When I waited for 3 hours downstairs at his company, I had the thought of getting a divorce, but I am just too ordinary, not as carefree as the main female lead. I can't just say I want a divorce and then get one. I'm afraid of other people's judgment, afraid of loneliness, and afraid of the unknown that lies ahead in the second half of my life. But once the thought of divorce takes root, it grows like wild grass. I tried to tell myself that I didn't come into this for love in the first place. I had already made up my mind that Su Sion wouldn't like me, being Mrs. Su is so glamorous, but I couldn't convince myself. It felt like I was soaking in cold seawater, soaking until it gradually warmed up, and it wasn't so unbearable anymore. But unfortunately, I've already basked in the sunlight on the shore. Even if it's just a little bit, making me soak back in is truly unbearable. Every part of me feels uncomfortable. Inside the cramped car, Su Sion's hand tightened around those few thin sheets of paper. A long time passed, so long that I thought he wouldn't speak again. He then said, "Have you thought it through?" "Yes." In the end, he signed his name on the divorce agreement. Later, many years later, I never remarried. I haven't found someone who loves me wholeheartedly, but my life is good. When I got divorced, I received tens of millions. Money can't buy love, but it can buy comfort. Su Qiuqiu did not marry Su Sion either. She and Zhou Yanling broke up and got back together several times, and in the end, she returned to the Su family with her child. Zhou Yanling went bankrupt and went back to running an auto repair shop, but his shop has a very good reputation. As for Su Sion, I never heard any news about him getting married. Perhaps he kept it well under wraps. I also didn't keep in touch with Su Qiuqiu anymore. She hasn't contacted me again either. My parents tried to reach me, but they couldn't get through. I lay on the beach, listening to the laughter and playful noises not far away. Someone came over to strike up a conversation, and I politely declined with a smile. Suddenly, I heard someone call my name, Chen Shu. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.